at the definition last time. We looked at the definition last time during the orientation, and just to refresh our minds, a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. And the purpose of project management is to plan, organize, and manage resources so that we can bring about successful completion of specific project goals, outputs, or outcomes. And irrespective of the sector that you belong, this is what project management is about. Last time we mentioned, I can't remember if we did, that the unique thing about projects in the international development and humanitarian sector is that projects in this sector aspire to change behavior, to bring social or behavioral change. So when you see NGOs building latrines or sinking boreholes, they are not replacing the government. They are rather trying to use outputs, physical, material deliverables to push people gently to change behavior. So if you see an NGO, for example, building a hospital, it's not just about the building. It is because they want to reduce a particular ailment or they want to improve the health of the community. And that describes the social and behavioral change. Or you want people to stop open defecation, and in that case, you are, sinking or rather constructing latrines. We didn't talk about this last time, but projects are not programs. And I don't know if any of you want to tell me what you think about programs. So we know what projects are. Is there a difference between projects and programs? And what do you think that difference is? In the chat box, please, if you have any ideas.
There's a difference. A project.
So a project is different from programs, or just nomenclature.
There's a difference. A project refers to one activity, while a program is a combination of two or more projects.
Any ideas?
Yes, project is different from a program, because a program is a management that is broad and it focused on deliverables, like all projects to achieve combined business results. While a that's a program. While a project is a discrete set of activities, it has a beginning and an end, while program continues. Program is also a collection of projects. In a program, you have different projects that are all combined in it, and it has no ending because it's a continuous program that keeps on, moving over, making sure governance intensive and ongoing is effective.
Thank you very much, Queen. That's really great, and thanks, Austin. I've seen what you've posted. Programs are a group of related projects having an overarching goal, similar to what Queen also said, that programs are, combined projects, to combine them in such a way that you want to achieve bigger business goals. So that's right. And so it means that, programs are a collection of related projects, and they are designed in such a way that the goal of programs are greater than the sum of the individual projects. So in program management, we say that 2 + 2 is equals to 5 or 6 or 7, not 4, because the sum of the goal of a program is greater than the sum of the individual projects that make up a program. And it's describing the added benefits that programs bring, or the added benefits we get when we implement a piece of work as a program and not just a project. Is there any implication to this distinction? If projects are not programs, Austin, Enenche, Queen, who else is there? Austin, Enenche, Queen,
Yeah.
Elder. Is there any implication to the distinction between projects and programs? I mean, so what if projects are not programs? If programs are bigger than projects, if they last longer, what is the implication of that?
To me, the implication. Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the implication will be there will be greater commitment that will be required to handle a program as compared to the one for project. The bigger the size of the portfolio, the more the commitment, the more the manpower, the more the resources that will be needed to handle it.
Fantastic. Queen, you wanted to say something?
The explanation here is that a project cannot be, a program. It cannot be, more like related to a program, because a project has a timeline to end, and if it exceeds that time to end, it continues. It becomes unattractive and uninterested. People no longer involved. It no longer has a significance in where it's being situated. It has to have a peculiar time to end so that something else continues from there to upgrade it. It's just like ending one program to start up another one that will enhance it better. So it's just by sure. I don't know. I think you better explain to us, but that's my own understanding to us.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Queen, and thanks, Elder. Elder, I think I like the points you made about programs needing additional support as a result of their size and complexity. So program management is a bigger piece of cake from project management, and the implication would be that program managers or programs in an organization will need, will need additional support, will need additional skills, buy-in from the organization and all of that to succeed. I also like what Enenche is saying, that if projects fail, programs fail. And that's true, it's the connection. So that's around the similarity. So because programs, projects make up a program, if the individual projects do not succeed, then the overall program will not be achieved.
Please, can I draw your attention to something you said? You said
I'll come back to you. 1 second. So Augustine also said that the success or failure of programs are dependent on the success of the individual project. Same thing with Enenche. Yes, Queen, tell me.
Yes, I disagree with one fact you just said. You said if a project fails, a program fails, and I disagree with that. If a project fails, a program continues, because remember, a program is made up of so many projects. Now, in a particular program you have different projects. The tendency that one fails does not mean another one will fail. One project can fail in a program, but the other projects excel. So in such a situation, what you tell me that if a program fails, all the project fails, but a project can fail while a program stands, because it's the benchmark of the whole thing. So please look into that. So
can we use an example?
Yes, I can give you an example. Let me assume I have like okay.
Let me give one example. So we want to end poverty, also, right? We want to reduce or improve, want to reduce poverty in a community, right? And from our analysis, we saw that the reasons for poverty in that community have to do with ignorance, have to do with lack of livelihoods, and have to do with poor health. And so to improve or to reduce poverty, we designed a program comprising 3 projects, one on health, one on education, and the other one on livelihoods, to teach people how to do small businesses, right? And so, remember, our goal is to reduce poverty in the community. And while implementing this program, the education project of this program does not succeed or fails, or we are not able to implement it. Perhaps let's say that donors don't fund that aspect again, or we lack as an organization, as an NGO, the technical expertise to move forward on that aspect of the program, okay? Because that project has not succeeded, there is no way we can achieve that overall objective we were looking for. It is impossible because we designed the program to achieve a goal that comprised these 3 projects. What we will achieve will be something different, but not what we intended. And so the program, in the eyes of those who are funding it, in the eyes of stakeholders, in the eyes of the community that is waiting for that result, has been challenged or has failed, okay? So let's move on to portfolio. Portfolio management has to do with, if you can look at my slide here, has to do with establishing the long-term vision of an organization. So portfolio management has to do with everything that goes in with deciding what projects and what programs an organization will implement, okay? So perhaps you are, it's an NGO that wants to improve lives of a community. Portfolio management would be about what goes in to make us decide whether we are going to do project A, B, or C, or project or program A, B, or C. Everything around checking whether the projects and programs of an organization reflects the vision, the mission of that organization. What do we stand for as this NGO? What do we stand for? And how can our projects, or how can we, from what we do, bring out our existence, why we exist from, the activities, projects, and programs that we implement. Notice that there are different, a bit of different or special skill sets that are required for program, project, and portfolio management. Project managers need to pay attention to detail. Program managers need to be good in multitasking. They should be great leaders because they are managing different project managers. So I'm working on the program that is trying to improve, reduce poverty in Cuba. And because I have an education, a livelihood, and a health project in the program, I'm managing 3 project managers. So I need to be a good leader. I need to be able to multitask and all of that. Then as a portfolio manager, I need to be able to see the big picture. I don't need to just focus on the here and now. I need to see the big picture. I need to be able to forecast and take care of organizational risks, etc. Are we together, people? Are we good? So depending on your organization, this slide tries to describe how projects, programs, and portfolio could relate in an organization. This may not be how it is in your organization because organizations are different. So it may be that your portfolio has just a project or has a program and not a project, or has a project, a program, sub-programs, and projects under that sub-program. So depending on the nature of your organization, you might have a think about how do projects, programs, and portfolio relate. But all the time, portfolio, is about the big picture, while projects comprise, programs comprise the individual projects of that the organization is implementing. Any question, guys? Great. So let's look at a number of problems. Last time I asked you guys about your major difficulties with managing projects. And here are some of them displayed on this screen. If you look at the pictures, the first picture, does that look realistic? So we want to construct a swing, but we have a big cushion chair attached to the swing. Everyone will love this, okay, because the wood usually paints your body. Everybody will love this, but will this be realistic? Maybe not, okay? The second one is incorrect understanding of needs. So the swing has been well fixed using the right wood, but it's just fixed right in front of the stem of the tree. So if we wanted to swing, we would hit the tree, in one way or the other. The third picture is showing us another big project management problem, which is around poor quality of materials. You see that the wood that has been fixed there, is damaged. And then the last challenge is unforeseen delays. So we need the swing to be under a shelter. And it appears that in this year, the rainy seasons are not coming anytime soon for the tree to start having some shelter. I believe you can relate all of these challenges to some of the things that happen on your own projects. This could be projects in life, not just projects in the international development or humanitarian sector. So even in life, sometimes it's good to dream, but sometimes the dreams are not realistic. We're not honest about the realisticness of the reality of the dream, etc. In project management, one of the core or fundamental principles is the triple constraint principle. It's usually described with a triangle, and I'll talk more about that as we proceed. Let us look at competencies now, and I wanted to ask you a question. If you can tell me in the chat box, or you can unmute your mic, and tell me about the most, tell me about a project manager that you worked with that you thought was really good. Tell me about the competency or skills that you thought they had that made them to be very successful. What do you think are the most important competencies for successful project management? If you wanted to be a very good project manager, what skills or competencies can you not do without? Anybody?
Can you ask the question again?
What is the most important skill for good project management, in your opinion?
One of the most important skills is communication skills, to me.
Yeah, go ahead, I can hear you.
I said one of the most important skill I admire a lot for a good project manager is a communication skills.
Okay. Communication skill.
Yes.
Okay. What else? You can just drop me the name of the skill, yeah.
Decision-making skills.
Yes, go ahead.
Decision-making skills.
Decision-making, very, very important skill. Austin says people management, but also stakeholder management.
Planning skills.
NHS says listening, communication, organization, analytical and critical thinking, all great skills. Planning skills. Great. So that's fantastic. Thank you, everyone. Your guide, if you have read it, categorizes skills into 4 different competencies, as described here. All right, sorry. So I was saying that the guide describes skills. Okay, sorry, my screen is back now. Thank you very much. So I was saying that the guide describes or categorizes skills into 4 competency areas, and it does it in a very nice way that helps us to put different skills into perspective. The 4 competency areas, as you can see, are the technical, leadership or interpersonal, personal or self-management, and the development-specific competency areas. Each competency area, each of the 4 competency areas comprises a huge number of skills, and we cannot exhaust this. There's an example here on this slide on the technical skill, to be able to proactively manage scope, or to manage the project budget, or to be able to understand the treatment protocols for malaria or for any other ailment. It's an example of a technical skill. So skills that require you to use some tool would be described as a technical tool. You know, you're very good with QuickBooks or with Excel or with managing the project schedule, etc. Leadership and interpersonal skills are those skills that you do with other people. And when I had asked you for examples of great skills for project management, most of what you mentioned were leadership competency area skills. So things like communication, things like, what else was an example? Let me check here. Stakeholder management, you know, planning skills may come under technical and all of that. So, but communicating vision, okay, seeing the big picture, okay, that's and a personal self-management tool. So you can think about many other leadership or interpersonal skills, you know, on your own. Something like managing a virtual team is an example of a very new or a very in vogue leadership or interpersonal skill now, considering that because of COVID, many people were working virtually. So managing a virtual team is an example of leadership or interpersonal skills. Personal or self-management competency area comprises skills that the individual exercises on their own. Thinking analytically, problem solving, decision making, those skills, you cannot exercise them on behalf of somebody. Time management, I cannot manage your time for you. I cannot think analytically for you, okay? Then something like ability to work from home is a personal or self-management skill. Development-specific competency area comprises skills that are around understanding the international development and humanitarian sector paradigms. How, what are the terminologies? How do you behave? The core humanitarian principles, do no harm, but also being culturally or religiously sensitive, understanding the context, contextual analysis, etc. So all these competency areas comprise these different skills, and these different skills, how this helps is that instead of focusing on one aspect and saying that these are the skills required for good project management, these competency areas help you. It provokes a conversation that puts, at least brings out a skill, under every competency area, so that in requiring people to join your team, it helps you now see that there is a larger box of skill sets, not just leadership, not just interpersonal, but there's also skills that you should consider that fall under international development specific competency areas. Is this helpful? Good. All right. So, and oftentimes we tend to say that one of the biggest skills that a good project manager must have is people management, that leadership skill of people management, where even if the project manager is not entirely proficient around the technical subject matter area of a project, his or her ability to manage people can make them, can lead them, motivate them to implementing the project to a successful end. So 80% of project management is about the people. If the people of the project are okay, are happy, are motivated, have the buy-in and all of that, then the project will most likely will have higher chances of being successful. Notice also that project management is an art, but also a science. And to highlight the fact that there is a lot of people thing around project management, look at some examples of what makes up the art of project management. How do you communicate with stakeholders? What kind of leadership, do you provide? How do you motivate the team? How do you bring about a good working environment? As important as this is, it's also important to also think about the science of project management, scope, time, cost. Do we have all of that? Are we checking with risks? Are we checking with the budget? Okay, so we can, the science and art of project management are like the two wings of a bird. A bird cannot fly with one wing, right? And you cannot overemphasize the science part of project management to the detriment of the art part, which is what we see often, that a competent project manager or project team members working on a project, everybody is competent, but they lack the heart, the heart to, in the context of international development projects, NGO projects, or so on. Sometimes you see very good project managers NGO workers, but they lack the heart to work with the people. They lack compassion or empathy. You know, they show bad example. They don't have the compassion to work with people who are affected, you know, by hunger or disease or whatever kind of situation. So the art of project management is very important, as well as the science. Is there any question or something coming to mind? If this makes sense to anybody? Great. So I'd like you to reflect on skills and competencies, do a self-check to see what areas from these competencies do I need improvement on? Which competency areas am I stronger at? And what will be a plan for me to develop the areas that I appear to have some weakness at? All right, so let's take a 30 minutes break, and we catch up on the call back in 30 minutes. Can everybody confirm just with a yes that that's fine? So if you're joining us virtually, you can grab coffee or attend to something quickly, or take a walk, grab tea. Fantastic. Yes. Got it. Good. So yeah, you can even fix noodles in 30 minutes. I mean, don't cook beans though. It will take you a longer time. All right. So see you in 30 minutes, guys. That's great. All right. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So we're going to continue with the phases and principles, the phases and principles of project management. And like you have seen in your guide, the project DPro phase model has 5 phases: identification and definition, project setup, project planning, project implementation, and project closure. I like to describe a phase model, sometimes called a life cycle. This is not a circle though, but I like to describe a phase model as, I like to relate it to the life cycle of a living thing. If you remember in biology, the life cycle of a butterfly, if it starts from, who can remind us? From the egg to the larva, pupa, and the adult. Okay. So, and if a living thing misses out on an essential aspect of their life cycle, they are not properly formed. It's the same thing with the project. So the project too has a phase model, different stages where different things happen that contribute to a successful project. So this is the 5-phase model for project management. Notice also that by the left of my screen, there is monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning. So in the previous guide, you had monitoring and evaluation as one of the phases after implementation phase. So we had 6 phases, but in the revised edition of this guide, we have monitoring, evaluation, but also accountability and learning. Management phase model. And it is put there because that is what actually is. In reality, we start doing monitoring and evaluation right from identification, continues through setup, planning, implementation, and closure. So, pretty much everywhere. Yeah. Notice also the 5 principles of project management. You have project management is well-governed, it's participatory, comprehensive, integrated, and adaptive. We'll spend the next couple of minutes to look at what happens, what each of these phases, what happens there, just summarily, and then look at the principles as well. So the project identification and definition phase, first of all, I wanted to describe those triangles you can see in between each of the phases. Here highlighted in these red circles, we call them decision gates. And decision gates, you may have met them in the guide already, they are major control points. In project management in this sector, we believe that you must not, project management it's not like, it's not automated. There is intentionality about creating points where the project needs to stop and breathe and check whether, is it making sense? Is what we are doing in the community even helpful? Our original assumptions in the design of this project sensible? Do they need to change? Do we need to add resources, reduce resources, or do we need to do something different? Okay. Queen, I hear your point. Let me know. Can you hear me better now?
Loud and clear.
All right. Well, but Queen can't hear me well.
Maybe it's their network.
Sorry about that, Queen. Try to move your volume from.
She should disconnect her audio and connect again.
Okay, Queen. Check with your system, perhaps. All right, so that I was describing decision gates. So decision gates are major control points. Every project needs to create those decision gates. On this framework, you have them, at the end of each phase. Before going into setup, after identification and definition phase, you check, do we have the funding? Do we have permission to work in the country? Are we on the same page with stakeholders before we move on? And after setup, before planning, you also check whether you have everything that it takes to plan. You have the team in place. Are you ready? Are you still on the same page with stakeholders before you move ahead? Who can tell me the benefits of using a decision gate or using decision gates? Just looking or listening to it or thinking about it now. What do you think might be a benefit for applying decision gates? You can unmute your mic and let me know.
Hello?
Yes. I can hear you.
Hello?
Queen, I can hear you.
Okay. To my own understanding, I look at you call it a decision gate, but in my own way, I can look at it as more like an evaluation. You look at what you have done after the setup, evaluate it, and know a way forward. To continue. Could be like a monitoring, an evaluation process. Getting to speak to the stakeholders and check some activities that has been done and know a way forward. Even though because I know that's one of the things that can always be involved in almost all the phases, and that's how I look at it. But in your own second, I think is an activity that comes in to assess what has been done and know a way forward. That should be my own take on what a decision gate should look like.
Absolutely. So yeah, so you're right. So decision gates actually relate to your monitoring and evaluation. There are moments when you can actually even monitor and evaluate, but it's not your traditional monitoring and evaluation, because an example of decision gates could even be your meetings, your Monday meetings, your weekly, your quarterly meetings, your monthly meetings. They pose a moment, they create a moment where the project stops to check, in addition to the other moments that you have dedicated in your M&E plan. It could be before major activities on the project. So we want to roll out a new product to the community members. We've designed it. Before the rolling out, let us check. Or before designing it, let us check. Is it according to what they want before we produce? So decision gates help us check, like Augustine said, if the project is viable, whether we need to go or not go. And it can help us save resources, save time, save our reputation. There are many times that a project might decide not to have this last minute check because it just wants to spend resources. But the price to pay is that your stakeholders will not be happy. How about you're planning a trip? You're going for an advocacy visit to a community. You're going to be away for 3 weeks. You're going to stay in a beautiful hotel and get fat per diem. And then you called the community and they told you that they are not ready. In fact, they don't understand the activity. Some people may still want to go ahead and go and do the activity. So applying decision gates will help us prevent a situation whereby we go there and nothing is happening or the community is not ready. Even though we've planned and the community knows the date for a particular activity, before that activity itself, we must apply a decision gate to check whether we are still on the same page. Imagine you're working with internally displaced people and they are further displaced from their camp, and you wanted to go and do an intervention there. You're targeting 800 people. You went there and you saw only 5 or 10 people. It is because you did not apply decision gates. In the identification and definition phase, so let me use my pointer. In the identification and definition phase, the project idea is developed. And this is done by identifying the problem in the community or in the area of intervention or in target group. What is going on wrong? Who is it affecting? Where? What do they need? Food, shelter, what? And how are you going to solve the problem? How are you going to intervene to reduce the problem or improve the life of the, the life or the situation of the affected populations? And so we do three things here. We collect data, we analyze data, and then we develop the project intervention logic that forms a major part of the document that we'll be using to seek funding from a potential donor. This is in case where the project is donor funded and not already funded, maybe by the implementing organization. In the project setup phase, if we have got the funding for this project, the setup phase exists to set the parameters that create success for the project. Issues of governance. How will the project be run? Who will do what? Who will make what decisions? Which decisions are in or within or outside the tolerance of the project manager? Who are the board or sponsor or steering committee of the project? Who will advocate for resources, promote buy-in, solve big problems, and make big decisions on the project? What are the key risks? And then, more importantly, putting stakeholders on the same page about the project is what, is done in the setup phase. And of course, the project launch, which marks the beginning of the project. In the planning phase, we will be developing a robust, detailed, and comprehensive plan for the project. We'll plan for everything. We'll plan even to end or close the project. We'll plan for risks, plan for HR, plan for supply chain, plan for learning and development, depending. But we'll focus more on planning for the scope of the project. When we were writing the proposal or in the initial identification and definition phase, we talked about the project scope, but we did not do so in detail because we were pretty much just writing the proposal or developing the tools at that phase to seek for funding. But we need a document that we will use as an implementation tool. That document is produced in the planning phase and it is called the project implementation plan, or the work plan, or the Gantt chart, however we want to call it. And it covers the full set of activities, direct activities, indirect activities like sending emails, transportation, making calls, writing letters, those often forgotten indirect activities that we later meet in implementation, and we keep wondering, where do we charge all these costs to? We wonder so because we have failed to do a thorough scope decomposition in the planning phase. And maybe we're using the project proposal as an implementation document. During the project implementation, we are putting the plan on ground. And as soon as that happens, as with any other life endeavor, we begin to face issues. So in project implementation, we'll be looking at issue management. What do we do with issues? How do we manage people? Because some of the people that joined us in planning for the project may refuse to do their work. So issues of team conflict, role clarity, issues of managing the budget, managing the resources. Because as you know, when the work starts is when usually we start, seeing issues of fraud, mismanagement of resources, so resources are no longer enough, time management, and all of that, issues with staff, etc. All that happened during the implementation phase. And because of issues lead to changes. Issues lead to changes. And so we'll be looking at something to do with change management during project implementation. In closure, we will be looking at what happens, the different scenarios that emerge when a project starts withdrawing resources. We'll look at the different scenarios of closure. How do you plan? Something to help with a smooth closure, different types of closure. Administrative, contractual, and financial, but also the 5 scenarios of closure: handover, termination, expansion, extension, and project redesign. But a big part of the closure phase is also learning, project learning. How do you learn at the end of a project? Any question on the phases? Can I ask you if this project DPro phase model looks similar or different to what you are familiar with? Does it make sense to you? Does it look like what you have seen before?
Practice, yes. Probably
Sorry, we were logged out for a bit. Thank you for your patience. So I was asking whether the phase model that I have explained looks similar or different to what you know. And Augustine was telling us, I'm sure you didn't hear because we were logged out, that it helps him put his work in perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's something that many people find useful, because if you don't approach project management within the framework of phases, you might get things confused, because for each phase, there is something that needs to be done. And like we said, it's like the life cycle of a living organism. If you miss out on the details of one phase, you might suffer in the other phase. Any other comment from someone? All right, great. So let's talk about the principles. So there are 5 principles of project management as well, and I'll just go over there. The first is well-governed, and of course, they are in no particular order. But well-governed describes the fact that every project needs to have clear governance, clear decision-making structure, clear processes. A well-governed project has a quick decision-making process. A well-governed project has a support outside that project that is able to deal with issues that are, above the project team. A well-governed project ensures that roles and responsibilities are clarified. I like to use the analogy of the English Premiership or the English Premier League football, where, or in organized football, that matter, it doesn't matter whether it's English or not. But you realize that you never see the referee doing the job of the footballers, or the coach joining to play, or the goalkeeper holding the ball with his hands in the middle of the field. There's a rule and a role for every stakeholder in the game of organized football. The participatory principle describes the fact that project management cannot be done in silos. You cannot do project management alone. You cannot sit alone and develop the plan that other people are implementing. You need to involve other stakeholders in the design of the project idea, in the implementation. So throughout, all the phases of project management are done with other people. We call them stakeholders. These are people who are who the project will impact, or who can impact the project directly or indirectly. Comprehensive. Comprehensive also means detailed. It describes the detailed approach which the project phase model should be approached. So you cannot say that a project closure is a piece of cake, so let's not put more focus there. And there's a tendency to always focus on project implementation. As soon as we have the money, let's go and start the work. So this principle discourages that approach. It encourages a detailed approach to each of the phases. The integrated principle describes the connectedness of all the 5 phases. Right from the identification and definition, you're thinking about how do you transit from the definition phase, from the identification and definition phase, you're already considering how the project will be planned, how the project will be set up. So it describes the connectedness of the project management phase model. The last phase is adaptive. The last principle, rather, is the adaptive principle. And this means that the project must be responsive to the environment in which it's being implemented. The project must listen to the environment and make changes, as a result of monitoring and evaluation, as a result of lessons that are being learned. The context on ground, things that are changing as a result of issues, etc. Any question? How do the principles look like for you? All right. Good. So let's start looking at the very first phase and see how much of that we can take. So let's look over the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at each of the phases in detail. that is what will comprise our work. So let's start with identification and definition phase. And there are three things. This is what we're going to cover in this phase. We'll look at needs identification, types of data collection, Jonathan Bradshaw's categories of needs. We'll look at stakeholder identification, problem and objective 3, current and future state analysis, and then the logical framework. So have a look at this graph and let me know how you will interpret this. I'll give you 2 minutes. All right, what is coming up for you? Jason, any ideas from you?
I'm still cracking my brain, sir.
Cracking your brain?
Yes, sir.
Don't crack it. Marcel is the... Oh, okay. Marcel, do you want to try?
No yet, sir.
Okay. Great. So absolutely, yeah. So thanks, Augustine. So if you look at the map, so Augustine is saying that change is best accommodated during the earlier phases of the project. And that's what we're trying to describe using this graph. So it's more cost effective to make change at the earlier stages of a project. So the project identification and definition phase, this first phase we're looking at, is a golden opportunity. We can do anything at this phase, change anything, revise anything at minimal cost. The cost effect of making changes are good sometimes, they're necessary. But we can only make cost-effective changes at the beginning. You notice that I'm using my pointer here. The orange line is describing the opportunity to cost-effectively manage change. That opportunity is highest at the identification and definition phase. It reduces at the setup phase, further reduces at the planning phase, reduces more at the implementation and closure phases. The blue line, on the other hand, describes project expenses, and project expenses are highest at the implementation phase. So if you wanted to make change, why not make it at the beginning rather? Or in other words, why not have a strong project design that will not require too many changes when it is too late or too expensive to make? All right, thank you. So for the project identification and definition phase, there are 3 things we are going to be looking at: data collection, data analysis, and the identification of the project intervention logic. Let's start with data collection. A number of reasons exist why we collect data before starting a project. This is not exhaustive. It could include, we want to identify needs. We want to know what the community's strengths are. We want to identify who are the movers and shakers, who are the stakeholders. There are some parts there are some communities in different parts of, around Africa, in Nigeria, where if you want to build a house, you've paid for the land, got your papers and all of that. But when you start digging the foundation, people come up to you and say you should settle them. You want to identify those kind of people, right? So you want to inform priorities. So there's an earthquake, you rush to the ground, collect data to inform what should be done first. Do people need food immediately first, or shelter, or medical supplies? But there are a number of other reasons why you might want to collect data. Maybe you want to understand the local legislations. What are their guidelines around constructing latrines or providing a particular kind of service? Can I ask what difficulties you currently have with data collection? Just drop them for me in the chat box. What do you think are the difficulties with data collection? Yes, identifying the right tools to use. That can be a difficulty. Yes, I agree. The cost of data collection, versus the usability of the data. Sometimes it appears we're collecting data and we're not sure of the use. There's also sometimes a big problem around the quality of data. The quality of data, and sometimes it's around the tool that you're using or the people that are collecting the data or the sources themselves. Accurate information, yes, and you're right. All right. So there are two types of needs identification. So needs identification describes the process of, identifying the needs in the community before designing a project. And there are two approaches to needs identification: the problem-based approach, but the asset-based approach as well. The problem-based approach focuses on answering the question, what is going on wrong? The asset-based approach asks the question around what is working well, what is going on well in the community, in a manner that if we knew, we will replicate or improve on what is going on well. So we don't just, it's advisable to use a holistic approach to needs assessment where you're not only asking for the problems, but you're also checking what might be going on well that you can strengthen or you can leverage on in the community to support what you want to do. So I'm choosing the challenge of data validity, which is one of the most prominent issues with data, data collection. I'm asking a question there. How do you know that your data is valid? So if you watch international news and you heard on one global news service that the United Nations Secretary General has resigned. If you heard that on maybe CNN and didn't hear it on BBC, Al Jazeera, Fox News, Sky News, and any other news channel, would you believe that information? And the news has been on for weeks and no other news channel has reported it. Will you believe that information?
No, sir.
No, okay, it should be suspicious. So we sometimes use the same approach in data collection as well. It's called triangulation, validating that data through a cross verification from more than 2 sources. So if Sky News, BBC, and CNN are reporting on the story, it's more likely to be true when only Sky News is reporting on it. I'm just giving an example. And triangulation helps to reduce conflict in data. It increases the credibility of your data. Thereby helping you do the right project. The risk in using the wrong information the wrong data to design your project is that you'll be doing the wrong project. And yes, it is possible that people are doing, or organizations are doing the wrong projects. Yes, please.
So for this triangulation approach, so what then happens if sources of data are actually constrained to just 1 or 2 sources? So does triangulation still apply? I'm just looking at the word triangulation.
Yeah.
It means 3 sources. Like what? Can we still utilize this approach with 2 sources? Of course, it doesn't work with a single source.
Yeah.
Why about 2 sources?
So
More than 2 sources?
usually there will be a number of sources. In a situation whereby there are no direct sources, I believe we all heard the question. So Augustine is asking, in reference to triangulation, what if we are triangulating and there's conflict in data and there's just a single source or 2 sources? So if it's with 2 sources, you still triangulate. Now, if it's with 1 source and that source is a primary source, then we go with it. But usually there are other sources. Even if it's not a direct source, it will be an indirect source, okay? So it's difficult except for key information or something like that. We might have just 1 person with that key information and no other person, but we can still have some indirect sources. People's perception of the problem, different from people who are experiencing the problem, can also constitute sources of data collection that we can triangulate from. There's a question here for you on the screen. Just tell me the correct answer in the chat box. All right, so let's see, D. Yeah, So many D's. Thank you very much. You went for a B? Okay. So, yeah, so all the reasons are correct. So you need triangulation because depending on who you consult, data might vary. Data collected during this phase can be subjective. Different methods of data collection may yield different results. And yeah, so all of those reasons justify why we need data triangulation. Okay, good. So I want to introduce you to Jonathan Bradshaw. He was an American sociologist. He categorized human needs into 4. He described felt needs, expressed needs, normative needs, and comparative needs. And he created the basis for triangulation. So it's possible. Let's understand what these needs are, first of all. So felt needs are identified by focusing on the thoughts and dreams of the community. You know, usually not a serious reason, emotional more, so thoughts and dreams, usually a feeling, it's a felt need. Expressed needs are inferred by observing the community's actions. So pregnant women, long queues, pregnant women forming long queues at the hospital facility might express the need for, might be expressing the need for more health workers or more hospitals. Comparative need is identified by comparing the current situation with the situation of others. So a neighboring community where there is higher fish yield or farm yield might indicate the absence of that benefit in another community. Normative needs are compared by comparing the current situation with a set of professional or expert standards. So if a pharmacist or a doctor says that this community or this situation falls short of a health standard, then it is a normative need. But if what we're also experiencing in the community is below the standard, the expert or professional standard, then we describe it as a normative need as well. So see how this helps us do triangulation. I've been to schools where you ask the children, what do you want? Children are sitting on the floor, but they tell you they want football. You know, they want their football field to be upgraded, but they're sitting on the floor and they don't have perhaps adequate teaching aids. So in that case, it's a felt need, but the expressed need is not matching the felt need. So you're already triangulating, and then the normative need is also not the felt need from an expert opinion. Okay, and then comparative need, perhaps schools in other communities have good furniture or good teaching aids and they don't have. So that's how Bradshaw's categories of needs can help you do triangulation. Does this make sense? We are doing all of this so that we don't do the wrong projects. Because we understand that if we dare do the wrong project, we will suffer in the end, because the benefits we are looking for will not be realistic, the community will not be happy, we'll waste funds, and then in conscience, we will not also have delivered on what we are supposed to do. Any question?
So, yes, there are times you just can't solve some problems. So that you
can you hear? Is your mic on? Sorry. So Augustine is asking a question.
Right, so I'm saying in reality, there are times you can't just solve them. So then just decide to fix maybe 2 or 3 or 5 problems. Why? Because maybe you don't want to enter into school deep, or you just feel these problems can't be solved, even though people are expressing it as a need. So how do you manage that kind of situation? Because at the end of the day, you might solve those two problems, but then the other one or two problems you're unable to solve will still impact the kind of results that you get, even though you prioritize those two problems as fundamental. So how do you manage that?
All right, great question, Augustine. I believe we all heard him. You go into a community and you're overwhelmed by the problems. That's what you're saying. And how do you manage intervening or considering collecting data on this problem, or considering an intervention in this aspect and not that aspect? Why we had done something on portfolio management, like just defined it and talked about it, was to describe the fact that every organization has a mandate. And so first of all, you're going into the community conscious of the mandate of your organization, of your NGO. We can't go into the community and then see very bad roads and then call back to the office and say that we have to construct roads, or we have to replace street lights, or we have to build the community bank, because these are also problems that we're seeing. We will look at the community and we'll be collecting data that we have designed based on our area of intervention or any other related areas. Secondly, even when we collect information around our related area and it is overwhelming, we will still work within what is in scope. We're coming to that, later on. What is in scope? We use a certain criteria to describe what is in scope or out of scope for us. A criteria like resource availability. Your donor funding, the proposal you're writing is about maybe $10,000 or $100,000. You cannot be thinking outside of that financial envelope. Okay, it could be technical capacity. Yes, the community river in this community has been overtaken by sand, by plastics and all of that. And you know that the best approach is to dredge the river. But do you have the capacity in your organization to do dredging of a river? Meaning digging a river out and removing the sand? No, you don't. But is it a problem? Yes. Did you see it? Yes. Will it help the community and improve life? Yes, of course. But you cannot do it because you don't have the funding and you don't have the capacity, even if you wanted to do. Ultimately, that is not what they sent you there to do, putting it in a very simple and short way. So the idea is that portfolio management decides, if you remember I said, decides the kinds of projects and programs that reflect the community's, reflect the organization's image or strategy, vision, or mission. Does that help?
Yes, it does. But maybe just the right that we also want to make our beneficiaries happy. We want to give them that in as much as
I don't think we want to make beneficiaries happy like Father Christmas. Where I rather say we want to support communities to stand on their own, to solve problems on their own and all of that. If we wanted to make beneficiaries and stakeholders happy, we will sell ice creams. We'll be selling ice cream. Yeah, we'll just be giving it to them. Yeah. So, and I hear your point. There's a salient point you're making about sometimes the issue that you see on ground is not the issue that your organization is focusing on. There's also something that is called external programmatic consideration, where another organization under whose purview such an issue falls might be hinted about, hey, Red Cross, hey, ICRC, there is this issue here, or hey, IOM, there are issues of migration or internal displacement around an area where we went to do a WASH assessment. Might you want to have a look at that? So we owe ourselves within the sector that, linkage and all of that. You're welcome. All right.
What is this no coffee?
So no coffee, and I mean, coffee is great. I really love coffee. Sam, next time we should have coffee here, and maybe an electronic coffee for people joining online.
See it on your screen. All right, no problem.
So no coffee is an acronym to describe the 4 categories of needs: normative, comparative, felt, and expressed. It's one of the questions you see in your exam. So just to help you remember. Okay. So let's look at the number of tools for data collection and the classification of different data tools. So we have secondary data, primary qualitative data, and primary quantitative data. Secondary data is data that is already existing. Usually, it is easy to find, cheaper. Examples of that are like reports from other organizations, government documents, and all of that. Primary data generally is first-hand information. And it could either be qualitative, because in terms of narrative and all of that, or it could be quantitative, which means it is first-hand information that is numerical. So primary qualitative data sources will include something like brainstorming. A brainstorming session with your department team could be a source of primary qualitative data. The information that you'll be getting from brainstorming is not numerical as primary quantitative data. On your screen there are different examples of primary qualitative data: key informant interviews, locality mapping, affinity diagrams, focus group discussions, etc. Primary quantitative data, on the other hand, is first-hand information that is numerical. So it gives you numbers. It doesn't go deep into the situation. Okay, how many people are currently on this call taking the project management training? 9 people. It doesn't ask why are they not all in the same place and how are they feeling. No, it just gets the number and moves away. So examples will be anthropometric measurements, measurements that measure body parts, like the scale you stand on in a hospital is an anthropometric measure, or the measurement they use to measure malnutrition. This SAM measurement or so, I can't remember what they call it, the one they use in measuring the arm to check whether a child is malnourished. Those are anthropometric measurements. Household surveys, etc. Other examples of primary quantitative data. Here are comparisons of data collection methods. So each of these data collection methods have strengths and weaknesses. So quantitative data, because it is numerical, it's easy to scale. We can use that to say 5 in 10 people are this, are that. But the weakness of quantitative data is it misses out on the depth of information. Qualitative data, on the other hand, creates openness, stimulates people's experiences. They go deep into the issue, which is a strength. But the downside, the weakness, is that it is hugely subjective. It has a lot of salt and pepper. It is not standardized or difficult to standardize. Secondary data is cost-effective. We said that is useful as a background check, but it can be limiting, incomplete, obsolete. Maybe somebody's perspective in 1995 or in 1901. That's too far, but someone's opinion that holds sway for a long time and it limits knowledge about the subject matter. So depending on what we are looking for and understanding these comparisons helps us to decide on what data collection source to use. Any question? So let's look at data analysis. Under data analysis, there are two things we're looking at here: the current state analysis and the future state analysis. The current state analysis simply is describing how is the community currently, now as we are talking, or before implementation, before our intervention. What is going on in that community? The future state describes what do we want to see when we have implemented this project. The objective, okay? The current state is the problem statement. The future state is the objective statement, pretty much. And you'll notice that this forms a major part of the project proposal, which is submitted to donors to request for funding. So let's see how we are able to develop the project problem statement and the objective statement, the current and the future state. But also a bit of focus on the stakeholder situation in the current state, so that it helps us also to plan the project better. So let's start with stakeholder analysis. And there are 6 categories of stakeholders, that as you can see here, we have many stakeholders on a project. Depending on the project, we can have several stakeholders. But all these stakeholders, we can categorize them into 6 categories. And if you flash your minds back at the current stakeholders you have on your projects, they will fall under one of these categories. So let's start with users. Users are those whom the project is meant for: your target beneficiaries, your participants. The indirect beneficiaries, or people who will benefit from the project, even though the project is not meant for them, are called the dependents. That's number 5. Governance describes the stakeholder category that comprises all those who are concerned about how things are run on the project. So the project board is part of the governance stakeholder. On a health project, the local health authority, the federal or state health authority might be a stakeholder. The donor that talks, shares regulations or compliance rules about their funding might be a governance stakeholder. Providers are those who are bringing some service to the project. The team, suppliers, contractors, consultants are all providers, examples of providers. Influencers are those whose opinion about the project can sway the project from one side to the other. The media. Oh, there's this NGO, T&T in Cuba. They are sharing fake drugs. An influential media house carries that kind of news. It will change the project. Okay? Or a traditional ruler, a spokesperson of the community that is respected, says something negative about the project, and people believe. That is an influencer. Remember, we're categorizing them so that we can identify them. We've talked about dependents, but sustainers are those who will have a role in continuing the project or ensuring that the benefits of the project continue to exist in the community even after the project has ended. So it could be beneficiaries themselves, it could be the local government or the local community, it could be the traditional institution, it could be a local NGO, a faith-based group, etc. So in identifying stakeholders, so remember we're doing current state, right? And we said that we're talking about stakeholders because we want to ensure that in this manner, in categorizing them, we want to ensure that there's a representation under each category. Otherwise, we'll be missing out on something in the project later. So imagine a project that misses out on a big influencer in the community. It will be a big risk, okay? One tool that is used in mapping stakeholder relationships, is that the question? One tool that is used in mapping stakeholder relationships is called the project Venn diagram. If you love maths, you must have met Venn diagrams under set theory, okay? And under set theory, on the Venn diagram, each circle is a stakeholder. So tell me in your chat box, how many stakeholders do you have on this slide? Yes, we have 3 stakeholders. And so every circle is a stakeholder. Thank you, Jason. Sorry, I'm trying to. All right, good. So every circle is a stakeholder. So we have 3 stakeholders on this Venn diagram. And the size of the stakeholder represents the power or influence. So which is the most powerful stakeholder on this Venn diagram? Stakeholder 3, okay? The spatial separation between the stakeholders represents the working relationship between the stakeholders. So which stakeholders have a good working relationship? Let me know in the chat box. Which stakeholders have a good working relationship on this Venn diagram? Stakeholder 2 and 3. Yes, thank you very much. Great. I would like you to look at this Venn diagram. I'll give you 2 minutes. Have a look at this Venn diagram carefully and make a note in the chat box of what you think is happening in this Venn diagram. What do you think is the story on this project as it relates to stakeholders? I'll give you 2 minutes and I'll check back. Okay, what do we have? Let's check. Tell me, what is the story? What do you think?
This to me looks like a fishing industry where the local government, health authority, and sanitation. I can't fully give the story.
All right, guys. So I know you're trying to write something, but we need to move forward. Agree with me if this is what you are thinking. So let me read what we have here. The consumers have a relationship. 1 second. One second. Just give me a second. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry. Let me just read this scenario. Yeah, consumers have close relationship with the fish vendors who are also part of fishing families. Yes, that's true. The consumers fishing community, yeah. So consumers don't really relate with the industry. That's what I was looking for. There's that distance between those whom the project is meant for, which is the fishing families actually. There's that big distance between the fishing families and the industry, which is the biggest stakeholder. On this Venn diagram, the biggest stakeholder should be the fishing families, typically. But we see that the industry is feeding fat on the whole project. Notice also that the Environmental Protection Agency is having a very close relationship with the industry, and this is suspect. It appears the industry is bribing the Environmental Protection Agency. Otherwise, the EPA should have been closer to the fishing families and the fishing cooperatives because it is around here they live, and it is the environment here that it is protecting, not protecting the industry. The local government needs to do better because it appears to be aloof, okay, from what is happening. I'm going to ask you to think about the project you're currently working on and develop a Venn diagram for that project. Take a screenshot of this, page and develop a Venn diagram, and then you can drop us a picture of the Venn diagram you have developed on the WhatsApp group, or upload it for us to see. So make a note of this page so that I'll see what work you are able to turn in during the week. All right. Okay. So let's look at problem analysis now. And for problem analysis, we are using a tool called the problem tree to do this. But let me explain what problem analysis is. We have collected data in the community. We want to analyze deeper that information. We don't want to use that information as collected. We want to go to the bottom of that information. And to help us do that, we are using a problem tree. A problem tree is a tool used for problem analysis, and that is how it looks. It looks like a tree. We develop a problem tree by starting with identifying the core problem. So maybe if we went to this community and we observed that the river water quality was deteriorating. That is our core problem. We put it in the middle as the stem right here where my pointer is. The next step is to list the problems directly causing the starter problem below. So why is river water quality deteriorating? One cause may be that the households lack sewages, or the companies are dumping refuse right into the water. What another cause, so these are the two causes as an example. What will be the cause of this cause? Maybe people don't know. So there's ignorance, they don't know the danger. Why they don't know the danger? Maybe they have not been told. Why have they not been told? So we can go on and on detailing the root causes of the direct causes until we come to where we have exhausted the tangible causes. Then we go ahead of the core problem and list the direct effects. So if the river water quality is deteriorating, what will happen? We will get a decline in catch and income of fish farmers. There will be poor health, etc. A number of things will be the direct effects. So let's look at an example here for the problem tree. On this slide, we have a problem tree example showing the core problem as river water quality is deteriorating. And the root causes are, first of all, that the levels of fecal waste in the river are high. There's household and business refuse are dumped into the river, but also the water treatment in the plants in the water plants doesn't meet environmental standards. What is the cause of this? There is inadequate levels of capital investment and poor planning within the local government. Why is that so? Maybe there is no funding. Why is there no funding? Maybe there's bad governance. Why is there bad governance? The other root cause is the levels of households and business refuse in the river are high. Why is that so? The population is not aware of the dangers of waste dumping. Why? Public information and education programs are unavailable. Why? We keep asking why. These whys are important in going later on to describe the objective. Otherwise, you will solve only one why and the problem will not finish. Okay? So a thorough and detailed work breakdown structure that is done using a participatory approach is highly recommended, at this phase. Going on top, you see the direct effect. So if river water quality is deteriorating, what will be the direct effects? The catch and income of fishing families will be on the decline. The riverine ecosystem will be under serious threat, and there will be high incidence of waterborne diseases. What are the other effects of these direct effects? You see, you go on and on as well. So this is how to analyze a problem using the problem tree. Automatically, what you have on top of your problem tree, this is a very important point, you should listen. Automatically on top of the problem tree, what you have there describes the current state of the community. What it means is that if you went to this community, the catch and income of fishing families right now is on the decline. Why is it on the decline? Because of these reasons under. The riverine ecosystem is under threat. And also right now in this community, the hospitals are reporting high incidences of illnesses among children under 5. Why? Because of these reasons under here. And so the problem tree describes a cause and effect relationship. The root causes being the cause, the effects being the effects up here. So it's a cause and effect relationship. So let's look at the objective tree. And the objective tree is the tool that is used in determining the future states. What this means is that how are we able to know what the community will be like when we have done our project? And to do that, we'll use the objective tree. And basically, the objective tree flips all the statements, the negative statements or the problem statements on the problem tree. So if you look at this slide carefully, our problem, which was what river water quality is deteriorating, is now river water quality is improved. And so you will flip or write the objective of each of the problem statements that you had on your problem tree. Look at an example. So wastewater treatment now meets environmental standards. What needs to happen for that to happen? Or why? Why is that so? Because there is improved business planning within the local government. They are costing for that piece of work now. And there's increased capital investment that was not there. What about the other problem where there was high levels of fecal waste dumped into the river? That has been reduced now, okay? Why is it reduced? Because polluters are being controlled. Why? The EPA is now doing its work. And above here, if river water quality is improved, what are we going to have? Catch and income of fish farmers will be stabilized or increased. The threat to the riverine ecosystem will be reduced or stabilized. And then the incidences of waterborne diseases will now also be reduced. Automatically, what we have above here is our future state. Okay, this is what we want to achieve. And this is what you will later on describe as your project outcomes. How are you going to achieve these outcomes? Look under, everything under here is the means to this end. And this is where you'll be deriving the activities for your project. They don't come from heaven. They come from this process. So every activity will, if you wanted to achieve all these outcomes, then you must do the activities that are related to these outcomes. Okay? And so the question Augustine was asking about, what if you're overwhelmed by the outcomes here? Okay? And you have only specialty in doing something around waste water treatment, then you have to leverage with other people working in these sectors to take over this part of the work. Or you could join a consortium to approach this problem. Does this make sense? When you don't use this process in doing a project design, in the middle of implementation, you'll be asking yourselves, oh, what activity are we supposed to do now? Or what can we do now that we complete the money of the project? Okay. Any question? So the, yes.
If somebody says, these are all the things we consider at the planning phase.
This is at the design phase. Design phase, yes, yes. This is what you must consider at the design phase. Every project design, must pass through something like this. Yes. There's no other way you can, except it's a very simple project that you already know that clearing the table means taking these things and putting on the ground. You don't need to do a problem or objective analysis.
Hello, sir.
Any questions? I'm thinking that we'll have to draw the line for here today, because the next piece of work that will go into the third part, which is the logical framework, is quite a big piece of work that I prefer we start on a new day. But I will interact with you on the WhatsApp group to talk about this, so that when we meet next time, we won't spend too much time on this. We'll just assemble our ideas. Would there be any question on anything we've done today?
Yes, sir, I have a question. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Jason. I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
Please, what is the relationship between the objective tree and the problem tree?
The objective tree and the problem tree. The objective tree is a mirror of the problem tree. All the statements on the objective tree are positive statements, reflecting the positive picture of all the negative statements on the problem tree. Another relationship is that the objective tree is the future state, okay, from the current state which the problem tree describes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, can we say that the two trees are a reflex of the hypothesis and the null hypothesis?
Say that again, Queen.
Look at it as the two pictures, as in the two trees, the problem trees, and the other one should be a reflection of the the hypothesis and the null hypothesis.
I don't understand what you mean, but if you mean assumptions, I would say not yet. We'll look at assumptions when we are looking at the intervention logic. It's a column on the intervention logic, which sounds like what you're referring to as hypothesis.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if there's no other question, from my part, I would like to thank you for joining. Apologize for the late start, but we're on course, and I think that it was great. The difficulty of having a face-to-face and blended, so we have people in class here in Abuja, in Nigeria. We have people in class, but you have you guys joining virtually as well, and we can't keep you for more than, typically we shouldn't keep people in a virtual class for more than 90 minutes. So, and then we have a number of weeks to go by. So it's bite-sized learning. So we will continue with updates in the WhatsApp group, and then meet next week as well, next weekend as well. Sam, any?
Yes. Thanks very much, Mr. TV, and thanks to everyone who has found time to come. I just want to censor our state of preparedness. We have spent 2 weeks. The first one was orientation, and now this is like 50% of the time we are supposed to spend together. I think out of the 5 of you, only Austin shared a score of his attempts. So we are also wondering why and what you will do. We have seen a situation where people will take this training and they will keep postponing the date for the exam. And there is no longer that burning zeal, because this is the time that the burning zeal should be up on everybody. Because the moment this training goes off and nobody to pursue you, nobody to motivate you, nobody to encourage you, you will lose steam. And we don't want that to happen. So is there anything we can do to encourage everybody to tag along? We know times are very, very tight. Things that we need to do are demanding attention. But then, like Mr. Tevin said last week, you spent money to enroll for this program, and then we don't want to end up seeing people saying, we are not ready, and then at the end, nobody's motivating you, and then it becomes maybe something we are going to dump into the voicemail. So please, I want to get feedback from you so that we'll know how best to support each other.
Please, I've not received the question, so that's my own problem. I've not received the question.
Sorry, Queen, what did you say?
I said I've not received. I didn't see the question. I just saw the work that has like from the beginning of the page to about page 222 or thereabout. I didn't see the site for the question. I do not see it. I've been stuck. I don't know what happened.
Okay, don't worry. We are going to share the question. The sample exams is actually, if you navigate from the website of PM for NGOs.
I'll share it right now.
Okay, so Mr. Teve is going to share that link on the chat box now so that you can follow it and then you can mark it so that each time you just want to take a test, you can just go through that link. Okay, so Justin, may we hear from you? I've just left this call. I think he has. Okay. I think, oh, he's here. Justin, you are here, please. Can you speak? Okay. Maybe if we can call Fidel.
For me, I don't know if you can hear me. I need to mute myself.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, I don't intend to waste any moment. I intend to write the exam as quickly as possible. Though, because of my very busy, I traveled a lot within the last 1 week. I was not able to take a sample test. But this week, between now and Saturday, next Saturday, I'm fully on ground. I'm going to try my hands on it. Not just once. I want to do it at least 2 or 3 times and see how it goes. So, because when the exam is taken fresh, it's better than if you leave it for some time, go on to do other things, and then you have to start doing all the revisions and taking all the notes again. So it's always better, like you said, we'll encourage one another to go for the exams at the same time, as soon as we are done with the training. That's for me, that's my opinion, that's my position.
All right, thank you so much. While we, maybe Justin will want to speak to us through the WhatsApp, that's fine. So Mr. Steve has shared the link again. Queen, can you see it? Hello, Queen. Okay, so I think we'll draw the curtain for today. We hope to see more grades posted so that we also be encouraged. As a facilitator, one of the things that encourages us is to see that people are engaged. And then you know that, yes, you are making effort and progress. All right, so if there are questions, you can use the chat box, our forum, the WhatsApp forum, and then we'll get back to you. So thanks Everybody. Okay. I'd actually sent it before to her. But that's fine. If you desire French, it's there also. So thanks. We are going to share the recording of this after this. Thanks. Goodbye and have a lovely weekend.
Bye, everyone. Yes, you will. It will mean that you all have to do some work. Yeah, so you have to do some reading, and during the week, most people might do is, I might send something to prompt you to pick some parts and give me